Welcome to Budapest. Jamie Carragher, as you mentioned, is with me. Two huge stories over this weekend, isn't it? Arne Slot getting sacked at Liverpool, which we'll come to in just a moment, Jamie, but you are here for the Champions League final. Can you just explain what you saw and how gutting it will have been for Arsenal to have lost in that manner?
Yeah, it will be gutting for them, but I always felt a sense around Arsenal that once they'd won the league, at least they knew they had something on the board, and it was almost like a relief. Get the league won, and the Champions League was something to almost be enjoyed. You know, they come here in the thousand. Arsenal fans were fantastic. Everyone I've seen here on the streets in Budapest on the way, getting to the ground as well. And obviously you're gutted. No doubt about it, I think, but there will be a feeling that, we've won the league. We've got that out the way. We've got that monkey off our back. And they've got to come back and try and win the Champions League as soon as they possibly can.
Will there be an element of regret on the part of Mikel Arteta about how that game went? Because they scored early, and then did they push enough to try and kill it?
Well, that's always been the criticism of Arteta's Arsenal. I think the way they played last night was almost the only way they could have played to try and beat PSG. PSG weren't great in the first half. Were they there for the taking? But that's what Arsenal are. And what I would say, and I've said this all season, and I thought this would stop Arsenal winning the league, but it didn't. They don't have enough quality in attack. And there was times in that first half, especially, where they just couldn't keep the ball. And PSG weren't doing great. They weren't creating chances. But it was far too easy to allow a team just to push you back to the edge of your own box. Now, Arsenal are fantastic. The best team in the world at defending their own box. And the two centre-backs were outstanding last night. But even though they are the champions of England, they need better attackers. Now, if they get better attackers, will they fulfil their absolute potential at Arsenal? Because we all know Mikel Arteta asks a lot of his attacking players in terms of getting back and helping the full-backs. But when you look at the quality in the front four of PSG compared to Arsenal, it's night and day.
There is that feeling, though, that because they've got the Premier League over the line after 22 years, maybe it can take the shackles off with quality signings in the summer, right?
Yes, and I think that was the idea in the summer in terms of bringing Carragher in. It hasn't quite worked out for them, but I do look at the centre-forward position, I look at the left-wing position, and I think they need big upgrades, really, if they're going to win a Champions League. And without them, they come really close. I mean, your penalty is away. But when you look at the run they had to the Champions League final, it was a very favourable run. So I think when they come up against the best teams in Europe and you look at the attacking players they've got, I think they're always going to be at a disadvantage. So that is definitely where they need to improve in the summer.
Yeah, so heartbreak for Arsenal. Big story as well, breaking over the weekend. I think it was 4.5 hours before kickoff in the Champions League final with Arne Slot getting sacked at Liverpool.
Good time to bury bad news.
Were you surprised?
I was surprised because a lot of everything that has been coming out of the club, people I'd spoken to at the club, was that the manager was safe and he was staying. Arne Slot said that in his last few press conferences. He actually was very close, or almost, I think, appointed a coach. That was only in the last week, 10 days. So there's no way the club is sanctioning that, or he's speaking to another coach to bring him in for next season if he thought he wasn't going to be in charge. So I think this is very sudden. I think it's caught everybody off guard, and including Arne Slot.
How much do you think it might have been down to fan power, player power as well, that Liverpool have come to this decision? Because famously, Liverpool don't go against their managers, do they? They back them to the hilt, but there were murmurings, and quite loud murmurings, of discontent towards Arne Slot.
Well, there was no doubt he lost most of the supporters this season, and at times I thought that was a little bit harsh. I must say that on the back of what had happened 12 months before. So yeah, in terms of inside the stadium, what you see, supporter bases now have a huge influence online as well, and that had turned really quickly against the manager. When you talk about player power, that kind of helped the situation with Salah, and that really, I'm not happy with that. I don't ever want Liverpool Football Club to become a club where there's player power or players speaking out publicly about a manager who won the league, the year before. That's not on. So I don't like that, but. Of course, that wouldn't help. What manager does it help when your star player comes out publicly criticising the manager? That should never happen, no matter what the circumstances or situation. So all those things put together, yeah, they've maybe it's forced the club's hand, but the results of the last 12 months and performances have been really poor. And my fear was, and I said this on Sky, was that Liverpool might have a situation where Manchester United have been in the last few years, where they're not quite sure about a manager in the summer. They end up sticking with them, and then they end up changing it 2 months later. And what you do is then you almost waste the season, because you've got a guy's signings he's made in the summer. A new guy comes in, he said he doesn't want them, and you know, you're almost, as I said, wasting a year. So I was torn on Arne Slot, I must say, in terms of, I think I would have almost backed any decision, really, and I could see both sides of the argument. But as I said, it is a shock. But I think an elite football manager, the absolute creme de la creme, probably finds a way of fixing Liverpool last season at some stage and making it better. But, you know, he wasn't helped with recruitment. You know, you look at those players, have any of them done well? There's only Ekitike who's played well. None of the others have done well. Now, you could put that on the manager. Does he need to get more out of them? Should those players have done more? A lot more, yes. Should the people above him give him a better sort of squad going into this season? Yes. So there's a lot of people to point fingers at where Liverpool were last season. And also the players who were there the year before. Complete contrast in their performances.
Yeah, just on that Mohamed Salah social media post, it was liked, as we know, quite famously by several of the Liverpool players. Since he's been sacked, there hasn't been any messages from the Liverpool players so far thanking Arne Slot for his time at Liverpool. Does that disappoint you?
Listen, I don't know what goes on with the dressing room. Listen, I don't know what the manager's like behind the scenes. Maybe they all don't like him. I don't know. I didn't like Mo Salah's post. I said that at the time. I don't think he should come out publicly and speak like that. Who does get on with every manager 24/7? And, you know, players have lots of different managers. I was the same, but you don't come out and put things on social media. You don't do it publicly. You don't start putting clapping emojis on it when someone's having a go at your own manager. You don't do that. So that probably tells you a little bit what's going on with the Liverpool dressing room right now and where that's at. And it probably shows it's not as an easy job as some people outside might think. So whoever the new guy coming is he might have to sort that dressing room out. Just
finally, you mentioned the new guy. The leading contender is Andoni Iraola. Is he ready? Is he a good choice for you?
Well, listen, he's done a brilliant job in the Premier League. What Bournemouth have done is absolutely fantastic, but there are still huge question marks. The way he plays is definitely the way Liverpool want to go back to. High-intensity football, we know he's fantastic at that, but it's not just all about that when you're the Liverpool manager off the ball. And that was a big problem for Arne Slot. That was the thing that really worried me. And I said all season, Liverpool off the ball was so poor. And that's a big part of Liverpool's DNA, not just Jurgen Klopp. The reason we talk about Anfield factor, a lot of it is off the ball, not just on it. So he's fantastic at that. But then actually with the ball and dealing with low blocks, and it's not about getting the ball off the opposition as much, because you're supposed to have probably 60% of the ball. My worry is, can you play at that intensity when you're playing every 3 days? And that was only getting played once a week, wasn't it, with Bournemouth? That is completely different. And I think whenever you bring in a manager in for a top club in England, you're thinking, can he win me the league? And that's my thing. That's a big question mark around him or any manager coming in. But Liverpool had a manager who's won the league. So that's why I was always torn. As I said, whoever comes in, it's a risk, of course, but Liverpool did have a manager who won the league.
Jamie Carragher, thank you very much. Safe flight back to the UK, and we'll be back on Sunday Supplement at 10 o'clock, where we'll be discussing further Arsenal's defeat in the Champions League final with James Ollie from ESPN and The Independent's Miguel Delaney. Teddy.
Look forward to that, Dharmesh. Thank you very much. Good morning to you. Welcome to Sunday Supplement, the show where we digest, analyse and debate the sports stories inside the Sunday papers. It is our final show of the season before a break for summer, and there is so much to talk about. Here to do just that are Carl Anker from The Athletic. Welcome, Carl. Dominic King from The Telegraph. Good to see you, Dom. And The Sun's Jack Rosser. Welcome to you, Jack. Great to have you all here. Let's see what's making the headlines then this morning. No surprises, one story dominating here. Gabriel's Heartbreak is the headline in The Sunday Telegraph after PSG beat Arsenal on penalties to win the Champions League. The Sun calls it Gabriel, with a picture of the Arsenal defender being consoled by Brazil teammate Marquinhos. The same picture on the front of the Observer Sports Supplement. Arsenal's agony is how they describe it. Sunday Times goes with pure agony after Arsenal just miss out on an historic double. And more on Arsenal in the Mirror, and also Slot cops it as Liverpool sack Arne Slot and approach Andoni Iraola. Familiar theme of heartbreak is reflected on the Mail on Sunday's back page, and there's more at the bottom of the page on Liverpool too. Gunners miss pot shot is the back on the Sunday Express, and below that, slot of bother. And finally, the Star's headline is Gunner Sting. Let's start with the back page or front page, Jack, of the Observer there. Arsenal agony. Does that about summarise it after so much hope over a long period of time?
Yeah, I think when the semi-finals had finished and we saw it was Arsenal, PSG having come through that incredible pair of semi-finals against Bayern Munich, there was a real feel that it would just be PSG and they're the best team in Europe. But I think with Arsenal, the way they ended the season, and I remember me and Carl were both here the day of the Man City game in the Premier League. They obviously lose that, and it was who can get this run over the season. And it sort of went unnoticed that Arsenal won 5 on the trot and stormed it while City really struggled, and that confidence has really built within Arsenal. So I think the closer we got to the final, the more hope would have built within Arsenal fans. The longer that game went on, going ahead after 5-6 minutes with a fantastic goal from Havertz, the hope's there and it's building and building and building. You go all the way. Eze misses the penalty. That's a very poor penalty. But then David Raya pulls them back in. Everyone's back up again. And then for one of their players of the season, arguably their player of the season, to step up and take a penalty like that, it's heartbreaking for them. But I think the general sentiment will be at their parade today that what an incredible season. I remember sort of February, March, everyone's speaking about quadruples, trebles, but given the weight it's been for Arsenal to win a league title, one trophy this year, that trophy this year makes it a fantastic season. So a very difficult night for them and their fans, but I think they'll still look back on the season incredibly fondly.
Oh, it's quite incredible, that camera shot, isn't it, behind the penalty takers as they step up. The headline of the Telegraph, Carl, front page of the supplement, Gabriel Heartbreak. We stood up behind him as he ran round, got the angle for his left foot. You were just saying, though, that you didn't feel 100% convinced he was going to score.
It was a strange shootout. I think, well, the new angles now for penalty shootouts where it's directly behind the taker, sometimes you can't quite get a field of depth. And for me, I always feel a bit off when someone's starts from a straight run up. You're going, hang on, don't do that. But penalty shootouts are sometimes got more in common with the poker match rather than football. And for me, watching it, I didn't get the sense PSG's goalkeeper was going to save a single one. So I was surprised that Gabriel didn't go for just simple, put it down the middle. He went for power, and then it went over the bar.
Difficult for a lefty?
No,
there's always a cliche, isn't there, about
this is a common misconception that left-footed penalty takers are worse. We have, the brilliant Liam Tharm on The Athletic did a piece last season about how more penalties are being converted because we've got more left-footers. So yeah, a really common misconception that left-footers take worse penalties is completely false.
There's a piece in the Sun, Martin Lipton's report, though, Dom, saying glory out of reach for Gabriel after Penn's sink at Arsenal. Not fair, simply not fair, writes Lipton. It's just plain wrong that the man who'll be remembered for losing the Champions League final was the best player in red and white, maybe the best player of the season, but especially last night. Is that a fair assessment from Martin?
Yeah, he's had a fabulous season. He's been like a magnet at times in terms of repelling attacks and putting his head in the danger zone. It was very, very deflating to see. It's a horrible way for any team to lose, particularly a game like that. And I think the thing that Arsenal fans will probably be struggling about today is the fact, how can you go through a season completely in Europe unbeaten, not losing a game at all, and not win the trophy? It's extraordinary.
Did you feel they were playing for the penalties, though?
The longer the game went on, yes. And I thought there was something very revealing when the coin toss went on. Declan Rice's reaction immediately as the coin dropped and it was going to be in the PSG end. You could sort of see he visibly sort of nodded.
He doesn't hide his emotions.
No, he didn't.
Does he?
No,
right.
It was, if you were playing, you'd like to have a game of poker with him, wouldn't you? Because he sort of gave it away. But look, it was an impossibly difficult situation that they were in going towards that end. I think PSG I think we'd all probably agree on the fact that they are the best team in Europe, and it's not like they're lucky winners. But I just wonder when it all dies down a bit, will Arsenal think that there was a chance that they could have had it.
Well, let's dig in, Jack, with a match report from Sam Wallace in the Telegraph there at the Puskas Arena for the paper. Arsenal agony as wait for biggest prize in club football goes on. And a quote here, they had fought the best team in Europe all the way through 135 minutes of exhausting football, containing battling, thwarting, before it came down to the spot kicks. It does, as we know, strange things to footballers that a player as gifted as Gabriel And Eze could miss the target was one thing. I suppose it's always after timing, isn't it? We question people's style, but it was brave of Eze to go for that, the stutter step, and it just didn't work out.
People that I was watching it with were picking that out and saying, you know, what's he doing that sort of nonsense for? We praise England when they win a shootout because they've all got their routines, and that's a big thing now of being in your moment, doing something. It's the same in golf. They all say, you get your routine, you do it no matter what's going on. So if that's what Eze has been working on all year and that's how he does it, that's the right thing to do. It's just not quite come off. The finish hasn't worked. It was a very poor penalty to drag it that far
He'd Safarov, hadn't he? The goal.
Yeah, he was going the other way. Yeah. So he'd done all the hard work almost, and then just over-egged it a bit. But I think to criticise his technique is really picking holes.
I'm with you on this completely, because the idea that you can pick somebody apart for having the bravery to stand up and the courage to go with the world watching. How would you react in the similar situation? Your legs might be sort of like jelly on the way to, and you walk up from the halfway line. He's worked on it. It's not something he's obviously just done off the cuff, is it? He's known what he's wanted to do. He's got it slightly wrong in the most high-pressure moments. He does not deserve any type of criticism.
And he's a player as well that I know from speaking to people at Palace and people around him, sort of takes his preparation and looking into his game so seriously. He'll go during the summer.
He comes across as an
incredible
really good
person.
lad. Really good lad. He's just he's been integral in the second half of the season to getting Arsenal driving forward. It took him a bit of time, hasn't it? He's
not had like a stellar first season, but he's delivered some massive moments for them. You think of the hat-trick against Tottenham, and just the way he's kept them ticking and maybe given them something slightly different across the run in the second half of the season. He's had a very encouraging first season at Arsenal. He's obviously done well with England, and it's very disappointing for him for his season to end.
And that's his style, that's his technique. The keeper went the wrong way, he went the wrong way, and Mikel Arteta alluding to the fact that Gabriel's never missed a penalty in training, and the preparation has been there. But there is criticism of the approach overall, Carl. Comes from Oliver Brown, perhaps not unsurprisingly in terms of slightly contrarian take on it a little bit in the Telegraph. But defensive Arsenal prove authors of their own downfall is the piece here. As the ball skied far over Maciej Safanov's bar, it's just Gabriel Magalhaes who looked like he wanted the ground to swallow him up. They say the dissatisfaction was directed at the officials, but it's still full filtered through to the players who'd lost not just their radar, but their sense of ambition as the contest intensified.
Ouch.
What is that harsh that Arsenal didn't try and win it? That perhaps it was an approach that would never win, because it almost did prevail.
It almost did. Now these are cup finals. Cup finals aren't really football games, and I'd say this Arsenal performance had plenty more hallmarks with, say, England's approach in the Euro 2020 final, or perhaps the way Jose Mourinho, in his peak, used to take teams. So there's these 7 principles for Mourinho for a big game, which was the team that makes the most mistakes ends up losing. You reduce the amount of mistakes you make if you don't have the ball. And we saw this at his time at Inter Milan, at his time at Real Madrid, and eventually he caused loads of problems at Real Madrid because they wanted the ball. But from the very first kickoff, Arsenal put the ball up in the air, and you're going, right, OK, we know how they want to play. They get the goal early. It's a phenomenal goal. Kai Havertz shooting from an angle that I think many people wouldn't have expected to. But
it felt like he'd messed the chance up, didn't it? You're sat there thinking he'd gone too far wide.
Reminiscent of Ryan Giggs against Arsenal in '99 in the FA Cup semi-final.
That's a nice high praise.
Wouldn't make that comparison.
No dribble, obviously, but finished from the angle.
But I think this shot and the fact that he's shooting from this angle, that's a man of ambition. He is now among, I think he joins maybe 4 other players to score in more than 1 European Cup final, Champions League final, I should say. I want to get my numbers right. And from then on, in that first half, the thing that really stuck out was Mikel Arteta not stood in the correct area of the technical zone, as he very often does, and you've pointed out more than once, but constantly orchestrating Arsenal, which have a phenomenal off-the-ball shape. There were multiple points in that first half where PSG have the ball and every single avenue is closed, and that was the game plan.
Was the game plan the same regardless of whether they could score that goal in the 5th minute?
I think the game plan was score a goal, suffocate them, nullify all their best tools, and perhaps scoring early might have meant they had to go to that well earlier than possible. But I think they were fantastic in that first half. That's the most timid I've seen Kvaratskhelia play in the Champions League this season, and he's been phenomenal throughout the entire tournament.
That was because of Saka helping out Mosquera.
Yes, and Mosquera himself being brilliant. I think Miles Lewis-Skelly was fantastic yesterday as well. To think that he's not even turned 20 yet, and he's going toe-to-toe with some of the best midfielders in the world. That was a very, very, very good first-half performance. But, like you said, Dom, the moment it gets to extra time, I went for a walk. I went, well, this is going to penalties. There's no way anyone's going to gamble here to try and score a goal. No. So, and this is it. If you are trying to... Mikel Arteta's approach is to reduce the amount of chaos in games of football because he trusts his players to eventually outlast, outrun, and get that 5-10 extra %. And that will work in a league campaign because Arsenal are better equipped for the rigmaroles of a 38-game season, a 50, 60-game season than anyone else in Europe right now. In a one-off game, the chaos will come eventually, and I think that's how you get Mosquera giving away penalties.
Is it against Arteta, or is it just the circumstances of the situations unprecedented for this group of players? Because Oliver Brown says perhaps it was anxiety that inhibited them, after all, from being too expansive, or were they shackled by the head coach, the manager?
I think both things of that can be true. Because the Champions League final, any European final is different. I could probably count on the fingers of one hand a classic game, and I wouldn't even sort of say a classic entertaining game that you see in finals in Europe. That's just not what it's about. But that was the absolute game plan for him, wasn't it? Score early and nullify them. And I was watching in amazement at times of how well drilled they were. The shape of them when they were out of possession was as good as you'll see from a team defending. From a coaching point of view, he can't be faulted in terms of how he sets his team up when they haven't got the ball. Brilliant. But I started getting concerned for Arsenal when they were doing unnecessary things, like Mosquera when he got booked early in the second half for deliberating on the throw-in, and just the things that you're going to wind people up. You know, you don't have to do that because they've got good players. The more you start reverting to the gamesmanship or breaking up play or whatever, you find yourself subconsciously coming back and back and back, and that is.
There was a spell where they lost their heads a bit as well, wasn't there? I think around the penalty shout, Arteta got booked, Rice got booked, and that they did really seem to struggle to just have a bit of control in that moment. But you're right in terms of the setup of the confidence as well, to just go, we're going to sit here, we're going to keep narrow, we're well organised, cross it as much as you want, we'll deal with that.
Yeah, if he in his mind's eye, if he's having a dream about it, what does he think? We score early. We think we defend.